you very much indeed. Welcome to the Sustainability and Climate Agenda panel. Our focus is what it means for the Commonwealth, for obvious reasons. More than 50 countries around the globe. I'm the BBC's climate editor, as Lalita said. And obviously my brief covers the science of climate change, but also kind of trying to tackle climate change and the efforts the world's making to tackle climate change. And obviously any kind of attempt at a solution to a problem as massive and systemic as climate change obviously kind of has to involve the whole of society. It wouldn't be possible if you didn't engage everybody, and obviously that means women need to be at the heart of it, but for lots of reasons. Because they're really effective actors, they can really affect change, because they're massively affected by, and often disproportionately affected by climate change, and because everybody needs to be involved to make the huge changes that we need to make across society. We'll touch on some of these things as we go through, but let me, without hesitation, introduce our wonderful panel. We've got Unnikrishnan Nair, who's responsible for climate change and sustainability at the Commonwealth Secretariat. We have Dr. Nitya Khemka, who's a visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge. She focuses on where sustainable development, human development, and gender inequality meet. And finally, Scott Davies, who's CEO of ISS UK and Ireland. And if you haven't heard, you probably have. So I couldn't remember. I sort of think I've heard of ISS. I'm not really sure. You may have seen its logo, ISS logo, in toilets. They're they're an enormous, but a huge management company that do all the sort of things behind the scenes that you're probably cleaning and catering and security and all that kind of stuff. But they're truly massive. I was reading up on the company. They've got 345,000 employees around the world. So they're a huge company. We were just saying, obviously, having an employer in the room, particularly an employer who employs people who probably aren't particularly well qualified or perhaps are new to a society, maybe migrants, is a really interesting ladder to get people kind of out of poverty and into kind of increasingly better paid and better jobs. But let's start off first of all with you, Uni. How big a challenge, why this focus on women, and why are we talking about it as if it was a challenge?
Yeah, I think across the last multiple sessions, we've covered that in multiple ways. I mean, if I lace this with climate change, like as a threat multiplier, to the already vulnerable population, I think that's the simple reason why we need this. Because just to take one example, you all might have followed the Hurricane Milton. The Hurricane Milton was much talked about in the media because it historically used to take months or even days basically for a category 1 cyclone to transform to a category 5 cyclone. This one took only 8 hours. So it's basically the amount of preparedness that is there in the ground to adapt to such a massive impact or to brace with such a heavy impact climate event is very limited now. And look at the most vulnerable categories, the women, the young people. It's massively difficult to coordinate at the ground level and to do things which basically build their life back after such an event. I think that's basically, and I just would like to highlight with this one example that how difficult it is to get back to a normal course after an extreme event, because that's impacting their livelihood, that's impacting their future, that's impacting their education, that's impacting the young one's health, that's impacting their entire family system as such, actually. So just to correlate to this one particular event. Yeah,
the vulnerability of some populations of women. But Nitya, I mean, women also can be, development. We've learned from development how important it is to engage women and how much change they can affect in societies. I mean, it's really important as a tool for delivering action on climate to make sure that women are engaged, isn't it?
Absolutely, Justin. Before, I just wanted to say thanks to Lalita, to Rupa, and to Baroness Verma for having us here today. The energy is amazing, and it's so wonderful to be part of this group and these proceedings today. But absolutely, Justin, I think that women have played a very key role in making society sustainable through their knowledge, through their perspectives, and through their expertise and experience. And one way this is really manifested is in agriculture, where women have adapted to shifting weather patterns through climate change, through new techniques such as crop diversification, permaculture, agroforestry, drought-resistant crops. And nowhere has this been more evident but in indigenous women who've developed the traditional ecological knowledge of indigenous women has played such a big role in safeguarding a lot of this traditional wealth of information we've had particularly to adapt to climate change. And we're talking about the Commonwealth, so I wanted to give you an example of Maasai women that have played a big role in being stewards for water conservation in their society, helping bolster groundwater sources through their very ingenious ways. It may surprise you, but women are actually the world's largest producers of staple crops. And I think as a result of these responsibilities, they are particularly mindful of scarcity of resources and do their best to protect resources. In fact, a PwC study in India showed that tribal women in India have the primary responsibility to grow, to store, to process food. So women have a historic connection to the land, and because of this, I think women have shown great grassroots leadership in a lot of the climate and environmental movements, both in terms of policy, but also making changes in policy, but also in advocacy. And again, great examples from the Bishnoi tribe in India, where the women are actually the protectors of the land, and the Chipko movement, which was actually one of the earliest examples of ecofeminism, where women led non-violent struggles to protect forests and land from mining and logging interests. And then finally, I just wanted to say that renewable energy, everybody's talking about green technology, but women play a huge role actually in developing and implementing renewable energy solutions at the community and household levels. And it's not surprising, because women are the ones who are responsible to collect the fuel wood, to prepare the meals for their families, and to take care of communities. And I really want to give the example of Solar Sisters in Africa, which is an incredible initiative that invests in women's enterprises in off-grid communities, providing clean solutions to women entrepreneurs in rural areas. And why is this important? There are 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa who have no access to electricity. There's a huge amount of energy poverty, and I think women are playing a great role in transforming their societies once they have access to these clean energy sources. So just to come back, Justin, I think as we move towards a more sustainable future, I think it's absolutely imperative to recognize and value the role that women have played to climate resilience.
Scott, your company puts a big emphasis on sustainability. How are you engaging? Because presumably in your workforce, what proportion is women, and how are you engaging women to deliver your sustainability goals?
Maybe just firstly a little bit more background on why I'm here at ISS, because we're a global facility management company and a workplace experience organisation. We're Danish. We have Danish roots. Been around for 120 years, and on the back of that, very heavily focused around sustainability, both the environmental side, but certainly around social value, very much core to who we are. And from a personal point of view, from the Commonwealth, I've had an opportunity, we were talking about it earlier, to work in India for 5 years, worked across obviously in Australia, but then across Asia over many years as well before coming to the UK. So again, it's given me perhaps a bit more of a unique perspective on things. From a diversity perspective, our engagement is around some core signature moves, and we've got a focus on living wage across the globe, is a major one for us. We're focused on qualifications, and we talked earlier with some discussions around social mobility and the importance of social mobility. We've got a unique opportunity to be able to bring people into the workforce at lower levels, and then give them an opportunity in the organised workforce. So qualifications is a key one for us, getting to 100,000 qualifications over the next couple of years. That's a big one. And then diversity from a gender perspective, and particularly around leadership, is a key one. And our goal is to get to 40%. We're doing that through.
40% of your leaders.
That's from a leadership point of view. If we look at our workforce across 350,000 employees, we're about 50-50. So it does give us a unique opportunity to be able to develop talent, and that's that social mobility opportunity that I'm referring to. And that's, again, good for business because it reduces turnover, it reduces recruitment costs, and it improves the level of quality that we're able to bring to a solution. But we use partnerships. There was some discussion around refugee groups. We've got a target in the UK over the next 2 years to bring in to recruit 300 refugees. We're doing that through local partners. We're doing it through inclusive recruitment, so looking for areas of the community that are underrepresented. How do we access those people into organised employment? So that's a very big part of what we're doing as well. So I think through partnerships is a key area that we're focusing on.
Well, Uni, Scott's talking about how he engages women within his workforce. What is the Commonwealth Climate Change Programme doing to engage women more generally across the Commonwealth?
So from the climate change program perspective, I would like to highlight the 5 areas where we intervene, because when I was looking at the brochure here, it talked about reshaping and redefining our common future. And then we also heard about many leadership roles of women, especially in climate action. And there are a lot of good examples, but unfortunately, many of those are very strong islands of successes. Actually, if you look at scale of implementation, vis-a-vis the big climate plans that the countries have submitted, it's still very limited. So the Commonwealth Climate Change Program's major focus is on 5 areas of intervention, so which includes developing enabling policies. I think that's an important area which has a lot of relevance when it comes to the means of implementation, which includes finance, technology, and of course capacity building. So we have seen a lot of good and innovative technologies coming out from many of the entrepreneurial ventures, but the extent of finance that is available basically are very limited because of the fungibility, the risk, and other issues. The second important aspect is institutional capacities. So many of our institutions, including the departments and the ministries, are not working in a jointed up way to have these kind of sustained solutions. When we analyze the nationally determined contributions, which are the climate commitments of many of our member countries, the Department of Gender and the Ministries of Gender were never consulted when the climate plans were prepared, most of them. And not to talk about the financial instruments, because if you look at organic agriculture, for example, or if you look at post-harvest management, for example, the extent of finance that has gone to women, especially in terms of these ventures, is in 0.0%. So institutions are not yet ready to embrace this transformation that is required. Human capacities. If you look at gender ministries or gender leaders in country, their knowledge in terms of what actually this climate change adaptation means, what actually this loss and damage financing means, where can I get these resources, whom should I approach, what is the legal framework, what are the policy nuances, no clarity whatsoever in many of the countries actually. So we have a wide range in the Commonwealth, from the countries like Tuvalu, where we have around 10,000 people living there in islands, to countries like India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. So the variety is quite wide, but the problems remain the same in most of the kind of fast emerging economies and also the very small island nations. And the fourth area is definitely the fit for purpose financial instruments and financing mechanisms. So if you go to a bank and try to take a loan of more than 5 million for a gender-based entrepreneurial ventures, in most of our developing small islands and least developed countries, your chances of rejection is very high. It's unfortunately very high, and people literally will have to depend either on aid money or depend on agencies, which gives you a loan at a very high cost of rate of interest, like around 24%. So that takes us to these examples, which are, as I said, like great islands of successes. But if you look at large scale projects, if you look at GCF or mid, so we have so far successfully accessed around 363 million US dollars worth of projects for our 13 to 15 member countries. Very transformative projects, but it took an awful lot of effort with country-based work, deploying people in the country, giving technical assistance to get this money accessed actually. And the last bit is knowledge sharing and knowledge management. So there are many successful projects, many successful initiatives, many public-private partnerships, many women groups taking up such initiatives, but linking them up to the banks, to the industries, to the policy makers, it's not happening actually. So like there are some research and think tanks who are right now building these evidences and plowing it back to the banking policy board and others to make those changes happen. So but still there's a lot that we need to do to bring that change actually. So this time what we have done is to study the 56 climate submissions of all the Commonwealth member countries and came up with a best practice guidance, which is now being distributed to countries' gender ministries, not the climate ministries, because when we set up meeting, that is the only time when the gender ministries and the environment ministries sit together and take decisions. Otherwise, it's by and large the environment ministries taking decision on behalf of the gender ministries. And if you look at small issues like microequity, water, so water is such a massive issue that the urban water supply and the rural water supply, the groundwater supply departments, they don't talk to each other. And the fourth element of gender is not even seen actually. So these are practical realities, and unless we have such transformative solutions. So right now when we develop a project of 30 million, what we ensure in countries is to develop a special purpose vehicle which is apolitical and agnostic to the changes in politics, and we make an agreement, an MOU is being signed with where the three parties sign saying that if there is a change in the government, still the special purpose vehicle will run and implement these projects. So the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub that we've been running since 2016, so we got this mandate from the CHOGM in 2015, and that is when we implemented this. This is the 10th year of implementation. So we have so far gotten around 363 million US dollar worth of projects implemented for countries, and we have a very strong pipeline of around 800 million projects which we are now discussing. That will be a big point of discussion in CHOGM in terms of how we take it forward, especially for the Pacific Island countries.
So Nitya, you hear there's massive institutional kind of resistance, reluctance to engage with this issue of kind of gender and climate. What can be done to kind of break through some of that, do you think?
Justin, you said earlier that women are disproportionately affected by climate change, and I think the only way we can solve it is not to silo solutions, as Unni said, but to have an integrated approach, particularly essential for addressing this unequal effects of climate change on vulnerable populations. Women are 14 times more likely to die after a climate event than men. And women and children are particularly 14 times. And women and children are especially vulnerable because of the poor social and commercial determinants of health, what we call the poor upstream drivers of ill health. In fact, there was a study by the MSS Swaminathan Foundation recently that said that there is a 6% higher likelihood of women being underweight when in a drought-prone area than men, and a 27% chance that a woman would have an underweight or a stillborn baby when there is a hydromet event. So the link between climate, women's health, women's livelihood has been very clearly established. But integrated approaches that really recognize the interconnectedness of the social, of the economic, and the environmental are extremely key to develop these comprehensive solutions. And these approaches need to be holistic because climate change is a multifaceted thing. They need to be community-driven and they need to be gender transformative. And I want to give you two examples of because I'm an optimist, and I want to cling on to the beacons of light and transformations that actually a lot of it has been driven by the Commonwealth countries. And one example is from the Self-Employed Women's Association of India, SEVA, and they actually select women from local communities to become climate resilient health workers. They go out into the communities. They teach women and they teach the communities on how to water conservation, agricultural practices, simple cooling practices, heat, protection against heat-related illnesses. And I think that this is such a great example because it's rooted in the community and it is gender transmitted. Another great example comes from Bangladesh. As you know, that women are unduly affected by climate disasters such as flooding, and integrated programs that marry financial safety nets, smart agricultural policies, as well as disaster risk training have proven remarkable results and helped women to be resilient against these climate shocks.
Nitya, that's great. A great list of kind of challenges there. And when we talk about these things, it's very easy, isn't it, to kind of draw together a kind of list of, to-do list of things that we need to do to tackle these problems. Scott, as a business, somebody running a business, you've got to kind of look at the costs of addressing some of this stuff. I mean, how do you weigh the costs of having an ambitious sustainability agenda and incorporating women into that with the kind of, I mean, sometimes there isn't a bottom line benefit for a business.
Yeah, I mean, I think we look at it from a business case perspective for sure. I was putting some figures together for this session today, and then I got a bit nervous because there's BBC fact checkers in the room. So, I did check with my team before I came, but from the built environment represents 26% of global emissions, but then you think buildings represent nearly 40% of energy. So again, it's an enormous opportunity that we can go after. So from a business case point of view, companies like ours are out there sort of developing solutions themselves or with partners, because we see that there's a revenue opportunity out of developing and selling sustainable solutions. The opportunity for a customer is obviously reducing emissions, reducing energy, but then reducing cost. So there's the business case built into that. From the people side, there was an interesting survey recently I think there's an opportunity in the business case around purpose. So it is something that we do look at. 90% of graduate talent say that they see it as a priority to work for an organisation that's looking at this stuff, that has that's measuring carbon, it's controlling carbon, reducing emissions. So if you're in a war for talent, it's absolutely an area that we recognise. From a commercial perspective, I was talking to a couple of people earlier that I'm impressed with. The UK seem to be, I think, ahead of the game from sustainable procurement practices. We see that across private sector and absolutely across the public sector. So if you want to grow in this country, you need to be able to have solutions that are going to be able to address areas of both environmental and social sustainability. And if you can't do that and do that in a credible way, well then again commercially you're going to have some challenges to grow. So I think they're important areas. So from a business perspective, I think there's a whole raft of opportunity and business case. The challenge is it short term or long term? Because some of those investments will be you won't get the return on investment in year one. It'll probably be 2 or 3 years down the track. So it's something to consider.
And in a way, that's really optimistic, isn't it? That there are real bottom line benefits from tackling climate change, but also drawing kind of women into the effort to do so. What is the Commonwealth doing to try and kind of make some of these benefits apparent to people, to kind of crystallise some of the benefits in terms of really delivering change?
Yeah. So we've been working in this aspect of gender mainstreaming and gender responsive climate action since 2019 actually, and it took a lot of effort in convincing the governments and also policymakers and international organizations, the UN system. Basically, in 2023, in the Commonwealth Women's Affairs Ministers meeting, we launched and the ministers launched what we call the Commonwealth Gender Responsive Climate Action. So I don't want to, because it's a Chogam point of discussion, it's the Commonwealth Collaborative Network on Gender Responsive Climate Action. So this will be launched, this is already being proposed by the Commonwealth Women's Affairs Ministers meeting, 18th Commonwealth Women's Affairs Ministers meeting in Bahamas, chaired by the government of Bahamas, and this will be endorsed at CHOGM this year. And so this collaborative network is something that we would like to work together with the member countries, partner organizations, including like the partners who are here in the round table, and also because you can't find this or find solutions to this problem standing alone. Actually, we should start working together. And when this was proposed in the Women's Affairs Ministers meeting, the ministers really welcomed this, because this is the decade of implementation, and in the last Commonwealth communique as well as in this Commonwealth communique, Commonwealth exhibited a lot of practical implementable actions. So this is going to be one of the major practical implementable actions in the area of gender mainstreaming when it comes to climate action. And this is not led by the Secretariat as such. Secretariat will drive this initiative, but we already have like extremely successful initiatives, like for example from small countries like Vanuatu, for example. Vanuatu's nationally determined contributions is one of the very, very forward-looking, gender integrated, even in the renewables and the energy efficiency sectors. And if you look at Canada, for example, they have come up with extremely forward-looking initiatives like the gender-based analysis plus, which goes beyond the women angle and then goes into the other gender aspects, so that the inclusivity part is really taken into consideration when project development process happens. So of course there are three aspects that we will bring into action under this collaborative network that will be announced in CHOGM, which is basically to bridge the knowledge gap. So knowledge is the new gold. So obviously when we develop Green Climate Fund proposals or the World Bank proposals in, for example, a country like Mauritius, and search for climate data, there is none available. To be honest, there is very, very, very few climate data that can say that, okay, there is an increment in a particular health condition which is because of change in climate. So the climate additionality aspect is to be proven when a successful project finance need to come to a particular country. So that's currently lacking. So which is one area where we would like to get more gender disaggregated data, especially using the geospatial information and other AI and other technologies. And the second aspect is increased access to climate finance. So for example, if you look at microequity, for example, or insurance, for example, we will have to look at fit-for-purpose instruments which can lead to gender mainstreaming, because the generic one-size-fit-for-all kind of an ideology is not going to work here. Because so what we were just to give one example, livestock is a clear adaptation strategy for many women-led households, as many of you know, in many parts of the Commonwealth. So what we have seen over the years is that with the introduction of the high-yielding varieties, the indigenous breeds are almost all being systematically reduced into numbers, just in some heritage or the germplasm reserves. So what's currently happening is, because of the thermal humidity index, when the temperature and the humidity increases above a particular level, all your high-yielding varieties will stop giving results, or stop giving milk actually. So it leads to kind of standstill in livelihood in many parts of the Commonwealth that we have observed. So what is the kind of financial instrument that you can suggest there? So general suggestion is that, is there a subsidy mechanism, or is there a one-time settlement option? So a project was developed, I think there was a project developed in India, which is basically on looking at climate indexed insurance for animals. Like for example, if the thermal humidity index goes above a particular limit, the livestock farmers should be paid default without even asking a question. And the third important aspect is strengthening the leadership and the institutional leadership when it comes to women-led businesses and others. Actually, it is very important, because when these plans are made, there is no consultation. But what we have now said, that when the plans are being now transformed into investment plans, that's the most serious part of the planning. And if there is no women or the gender ministries involved in this, or youth ministries involved in this, kindly don't enforce this planning. And that's something that we have been discussing with the ministries of finance, who finally ticks off the plans or the investment plans. So I think kindly look forward to this collaborative network. I'll definitely take the email IDs from all the participants here, and will definitely ensure that we send around email when we have the thematic working groups and the advisory groups convene. Thank you.
So look, we're running out of time. The time slipped by much more quickly than I expected it to. I'd like to kind of draw it to, we've had a lot of ambition there, a lot of things that you're on your agenda. Scott's been talking about the kind of ways in which you can leverage this to be a benefit for your business. But what big thoughts do you want people to take away from this panel? And let's start with you, shall we, Scott? What would your kind of advice be if you're trying to integrate women into the tackling climate change?
I think targets, like be pretty visible with your with what you're aiming for, and measure it, but then make it bonusable. So make it really flow those targets throughout the entire organisation is a really important one. Being credible, I think. Being credible around your plan is a...
So not too ambitious, something achievable.
Yeah, be credible, but over communicate around that target. And the last one would just be going back to partners. Don't have to do it on your own. There's great partners. We've heard some of the ideas already on the panel, but use those partners to help you on the journey.
Nitya, what would your advice be?
Finance is the elephant in the room. Much of the climate finance actually goes into mitigation, not much into adaptation. Why is that a problem? Because women are in agricultural sectors, they're unduly impacted by climate change. They need the financing in order so that they can transform and adapt to the effects of climate change. There's a $1.3 trillion deficit if we're all having to transition to low carbon economy by 2030. These are big figures. We need to talk about the money. We need to make sure those north-south flows as well as the private sector capital in new models of innovative financing are made available.
It's always hard when you're third in the list, isn't it? And you're like, oh no, I'm just going to say that.
No. I would like to say that enabling policies, because without that, both of these it's not going to work actually. So definitely enabling policies for financing, because right now most countries don't have enabling policies to integrate financing that cater to women. Right now, most of the countries don't have enabling policies to have partnerships, especially private sector is a big animal again, where they can bring in a lot of resources. So I'll pitch for enabling policies.
That's very good. No, we've got a good collection of takeaway thoughts for everybody there. Thank you very much indeed to my excellent panel. Thank you, and thank you all for being there.